So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a very special webinar from Sight and Sound Technology. My name is Stuart Lawler. We're normally here to talk about technology, and we will be talking about technology, of course, but the focus today is on a legend in our field, and that is the one and only Eric Damery. I was going to say of Vispero, but I have to say formerly of Vispero. Former Vice President of Software Product Management, Eric has, after many years, I do believe 28 years, hung up his software product management hat and all his other tools of the trade, and is taking a very well-deserved break. We're here today to pay our own tribute to Eric as a colleague and a friend, and someone who has always been passionate about access for blind and low vision people. And I think whatever screen reader you use, Eric's work is in the background of so many of the pieces of technology that we use today. And I think everybody has their own stories about Eric and maybe where you met Eric or something that Eric did or a feature in JAWS that Eric told you about that has made a significant change to the way in which you use your computer. And we'll have lots of time to share those stories in a little while. So speaking of that, if you want to share your stories with us, we'd love to hear them. You can raise your hand on Zoom by pressing Alt and Y. Or if you're on a mobile app, you can activate the raise hand button. And you can also type in chat by pressing Alt and H, or you can type in chat on a mobile app by activating the chat button. And if you are chatting, please make sure that you tick the option to send your message to all panelists and attendees so that everybody can join in the conversation. Now, I want to introduce the rest of the panel here today because we have a little panel together. We have, and we're delighted to have our CEO, Glenn Tukey from Sight and Sound Technology. Glenn is over in London, and we'll be going to Glenn in a second for a couple of words. We're also joined by Sight and Sound Technology's keyboards guru, the one and only Sharon Lyons. Sharon will be here helping us out as well. And we're joined by the now Vice President of Software Product Management at Vispero, and that's Ryan Jones. And we're going to hear from Ryan in a little while. So you're all very welcome to our panel. Thank you for joining us today, guys. I'm going to start by handing it over to Glenn. And Glenn, I know it's hard to say a few words about Eric, but I'm going to give you the unenviable task to do it first. So over to you.
Thank you, Stuart. And I want to say actually up front, a very big welcome to Ryan as well. First time I've met you, and you've got a massive, massive act to follow. But you know what? You must be up to it because they put you into that role. So welcome as well to you, to the certainly to the Sight and Sound family over this side of the globe. But yes, today's about Eric, and I wanted to go up first because because I can, because I'm on the panel. And Eric, look, I only go back 15 years with you, and I was talking to Mervyn Robertson, the founder of Sight and Sound, who obviously goes back an awful lot longer than that. And I know he speaks to you all the time regularly, but he obviously wanted me to say on screen how much he's enjoyed your company and friendship and support over the years. And that's really what I wanted to say from the Sight and Sound perspective as the chief executive of a company which relies so much on the fantastic work that you've led across Vispero, previously Freedom Scientific and all the other variants. So you've been the common thread through all of that, helping us achieve what we actually all on this call want to achieve, which is looking after people who need support and help with technology, and that's what JAWS has done over the years so well. So from our point of view as a corporate businessman, well, you've made that work for us and made it much easier for us to look after our customers and clients. But actually, let's scoop that to one side, because you're a damn good egg, and as I say, I only go back 15 years. And but the common thing I would say is wherever we are in the world, wherever we've turned up and been in the same room as Eric, you have been a key part of whatever's been going on. People rush to you to find you, to look for pearls of wisdom. You rush to people when you know support and help is needed, and that's a really key part, I think, of anybody on this call who's worked around JAWS and worked around Eric. They know that actually it doesn't matter who you are, where you are. If you've got a problem, he'll come out there and reach a hand out and help you, or help us to help you, and it's an enormous personality trait, I think. And so, you know, there's so many people on this call because you touch so many people so well. So not just thank you from Sight and Sound, from me personally, thank you very much from the bar in you know, in Florida, where yourself and Pauline met myself and my wife, and through all those personal positions and friendships and drinks and fun times we've had. I just want to say, from my personal perspective, it's fantastic. We're going to miss you, and we probably won't let you go, but I know you will in the end escape to the golf course, and you've earned it. But my friend, you've earned it. So from Sight and Sound and from Glenn Tukey, well, thank you very much. And whatever you do next, I know you're going to have fun, because you always have when you've been with us, wherever we are. Well done, Eric. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Glenn.
And
Thanks very
Stuart,
much.
back to you.
Thank you, Glenn. Here, absolutely. Great few words there to start us off, and we're going to have lots more tributes, I'm sure. I think everyone has a story of Eric, maybe of a Jaws keystroke, maybe, that Eric would have given. The one I remember personally is I went to a Sight Village event a long time ago, 15 or 16 years now at least, or maybe more. And Eric was giving one of his legendary presentations in Birmingham, and it was packed. I remember going in there with a colleague at the time from National Council of the Blind. And one of the keys that Eric had mentioned, which had just been brought into Jaws, was the jump to line command. And I still use that because I found it so useful at the time, and it's keystrokes like that that will stick with you. So we'd love to hear your favorite keystrokes that Eric gave you, or things that you might have come to mind. And again, you can do that by raising your hand with Alt and Y. And I know we've 1 or 2 hands raised already. We will get to those hands in a moment. And you can chat with Alt and H, and Sharon is keeping an eye on the chat. But Eric, let's, if you don't mind, have a bit of a chat, because am I correct? Is it 28 years?
Yeah, it was 1994. I think I met Ted in December of 93, and then started with him in January of 94.
So you're coming into an industry, very specialized industry. I know you had some personal experience with vision impairment prior to that, but was it a huge overload of information from day one?
It was. I remember the thing that stood out to me was it was all the terminology. There were speech synthesizers. There were so many of them: double talk and triple talk and accents and discover accents and deck talks, and just trying to keep that all straight. With then there's Braille printers, and then there's Braille displays, and trying to get that all straight when I was hired, because I was really hired as the sales guy for Henry Joyce. And it was funny, I remember my first office, they didn't give me a computer. They didn't have one ready for me anyway. And they just said, you know, here's a desk and a phone, and here's a pad of paper. Get started. Here's the dealers. And I started calling dealers, because they said, you know, call dealers and try and get sales. And it was really difficult, because when you would get on the phone with people in this industry, everybody kind of knows everything already. They all understand all of the terminology and everything. So you were the outsider, and it was very obvious to everybody that I was the outsider when I would get on the phone and start talking. I didn't know things. And it took time to learn it. It took a lot of, matter of fact, you never stop. I forgot the jump to line command till you just mentioned it. So you're always relearning things. But anyway, it was difficult in the beginning. It was very, very difficult, and it was a matter of getting used to everything. And Ryan has the distinct advantage of 15 years of experience working in the industry in this company. So he already knows all the technology, and that's why I figured Ryan was the perfect fit for this, because he's a great presenter, carries himself extremely well. Everybody respects him within our organization, and the people outside the organization that know him already respect him as well. And so he's going to just transition right into this. It'll be much easier for him than it was for me.
And we'll be looking forward to chatting to Ryan in a couple of minutes, and of course to having Ryan back, I'm sure, on future sessions. One of the things people always talk about is say you've watched Eric Damery using a screen reader. Eric uses a screen reader, and I don't mind saying this, better than most screen reader users, I think. And you have often talked at your presentations about bringing your computer home in the evening, and you had no screen, or maybe you turned off the screen and you just sat at nighttime learning JAWS. That's what you did, yeah?
Yeah, I'm always been the type of a person that if I'm going to explain something and teach it and sell it, I sure better know how to use it. So I couldn't figure out how to do it while I was working. So I went home and I did it at home. And it's funny, I just had a guy that I've communicated with over the years, a sighted guy up in Canada, had written to me yesterday or the day before. And I just got around to reading his questions, and he basically asked me, what can I do to become proficient in understanding screen reading? Because he's someone who has to work with a lot of people who are visually impaired. And I had to take some time to stop and think about it. And I just wrote the answers back to the guy this morning. I just wrote the email. And in a nutshell, it came down to step one. As a sighted person, you have to learn how to edit text and format a document. So turning off get away from the monitor, and you're going to mess it up. And it's all right. Just Alt F4 out of it and open Notepad up and start again. And you can do this in Notepad. But if you can learn how to edit text and write a good document without looking at it, that's step one. And it takes weeks to do it, because you have to get rid of that sense of sight. It's so overpowering, the sense of sight, for those of us who have it, that we don't really listen to what's going on. Step two was explaining it to others. And I had that opportunity to explain it to a lot of sighted people and a lot of blind people, and teach them navigation and talk to them about it. And number three was basic training material. Now, I had the advantage of being able to sit in the room as we created it. So I spent weeks working on trying to explain this to somebody on those basic training tapes, and would have to listen to it and make sure it made sense. So I told him, I said, if you do those three things, and that third being go through the basic training tapes a couple of times without a monitor and try and follow along, that really helps.
I'm glad you've mentioned the basic training tapes, because that's prompted me. That's how I learned to use JAWS, listening to those when it was JAWS version 2, I think, in Windows 3.1. But there was some really interesting bits where yourself and Ted Henter were obviously working away, and Ted would say something and you'd say, no, you're not at that point. You have focus on the desktop, or you're in a different application. And you guys just left the tape running. And it was very human. I think people enjoyed hearing that.
You should have heard some of the stuff we took out. It was, it was frustrating, and it was frustrating for Ted in particular, because he's a perfectionist. And I think that really, you can just imagine how many mistakes were in that stuff. For those ones that got left in, it wasn't necessarily intentional. I think it was just that we got sick of editing.
Okay.
So
you've had a lengthy career. You've traveled the world. You've met so many people and done so many things. Any big highlights, things that were particularly proud moments for you over the 28 years?
I do think that the traveling was fun, and getting in front of people I always enjoyed. I liked, Sight and Sound is a company that I had connected with early on. The original founders, Mervyn and John Bradburn, I had connected with probably in my first couple of months of being at the company. And Sight and Sound was a longtime good JAWS for DOS dealer, and they had adopted Window Bridge, a product that came out before JAWS for Windows. And Sight and Sound did this. And I remember when I came into the company kind of felt like, well, that's bad. Our dealer is going with someone else's Windows screen reader. And I looked at it like, no, our dealer has customers that they have to take care of, and they needed a solution, and we didn't have it. So they went with Window Bridge. They did the best they could for their customers at the time. And then they were willing to make the transition to JAWS for Windows, and they worked with me. And I remember we went through the product. I said, find out every customer over there that had Window Bridge. I think we gave them all a JAWS for Windows.
Yeah.
And, you know, we did things like that together to make sure that Sight and Sound was set up to be able to support the community and take what we were doing in the US and bring it to the UK, because we couldn't do that. We didn't have people on the ground there, and we needed a company that could answer that. And Sight and Sound has always been that company for us. 7% of the JAWS in the world have gone through Sight and Sound's doors, and that's a fantastic tribute to that company. So I think going over there and spending the time with companies like that has been one of the things that's benefited me the most. I've really enjoyed, and getting to meet the people. And Stuart, you came and talked to me. We were probably at Sight City,
that's right. Yeah.
In Germany, and you came and talked to me, and you said, you know, I think you were on a taking a long shot. Like, I wonder if I can get them there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can go to Ireland and visit with you guys. I've never been to Ireland. Let's do it. And then I came back many years, and I've always enjoyed it. And you have been instrumental in helping the people in your country, and I've always recognized that. And it's been a pleasure to meet all the people. And I see so many names on your list, not only from the UK and Ireland, by the way, but from all over the place that have come to listen to this today. So.
And I think that's the other point maybe worth mentioning is, and I've always, and I think Glenn has also made reference to it before we went on air. It was about the people that you've always been customer focused, and not just about the product, but getting to know what people need and getting to know the people who use the product.
Yeah. That matters. And I remember going to Scotland. We'd go to the library up there in Glasgow, and do a presentation in a small little room in a library, and we maybe get 10 people come in the room. There was always one or two good users of the product that would be in there, and I always enjoyed going back. I saw Andrew Summers on here on the top of the list, and you know, it's always been good to meet the users and get to know people and listen to their experiences. And then you try and take that information and you go back and you kind of weave it into what you're doing in the product to try and make things work better for them.
Okay, great segue there to start some of these tributes, because Andrew Summers has his hand raised, so we might as well bring him in at this point. And anyone else? I see Jonathan with his hand raised, so we'll come to people as we go along. Sharon's watching chat, so you can either put your messages in chat if you want to say something to Eric, if you don't want to speak, or if you want to say something or share a story or tell a funny story, anything at all. So let's bring Andrew in. And Andrew, you should be able to unmute yourself, I hope.
Good afternoon or good morning to you, Eric, in the US.
Yeah, good morning.
Where do I start? Oh, sorry. Sorry, Eric.
No, I just say good morning. Good to hear your voice.
Yes, good morning. Well, where do I start with you? Well, when you came here to Scotland, that's when I first met you. I'll be very sorry to see you go, because you have, after 28 years of you working, that's as long as I've been using JAWS. Wow. As well. Through you introducing the layered command with the insert space and J, that's where I started learning a lot more about JAWS keystrokes.
Yeah.
Because you could type it in and ask, what's the line to read line? And so on. Well, I knew that from going back from 3.1. That's when I started using JAWS. 3.31 in the Mitchell Library with, shall I mention her name, Anne Hamilton.
I'll give her a shout out.
Um,
Why not? Yeah, Anne's a great lady. Yeah.
Yes. Anne's taught me a hell of a lot, and so have you, Eric. You have, without you, we wouldn't have JAWS. We wouldn't have Zoom text. We wouldn't have whatever you have produced over there to bring and ship to Sight and Sound for us to buy. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have had it.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people behind all of this stuff, and I've been fortunate to be the face of a lot of it and to be able to come over and communicate and talk with you guys. But trust me, there's a lot of people behind this stuff. You mentioned the insert space J, that's the JAWS command search, something that
Yes.
Glenn and I had talked about for a long time, Glenn Gordon, and we wanted to make sure that, you know, we needed a Google search for JAWS. People need to be able to, you know, think of, well, I think this is what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. Well, just type in a couple of words that make sense, and hopefully we can find a keystroke for you. And it was a great feature we put in. Yep.
And another one was the layered key command and the question mark to find out.
Yep, to find out what's available at the layer you're in. And the layer itself, the layered commands started after an international distributor meeting that we had in Switzerland. And there was a guy named Hans who has since retired that worked for Access Tech in Switzerland. And Hans was a sighted guy who spent a lot of time training older populations in Switzerland. And he and I spoke quite a bit. He was like a PhD. He was a lot smarter than I ever was. And he explained to me, he said, they can only remember so many keystrokes, and I need help, and we're running out of keystrokes and we can't have these complicated ones. And he explained his thought process of a layered solution because he was an engineering type. And from that, we went back, I talked with Glenn Gordon, and we came up with that layered command option, which I think has been very impactful and changed things. So it all comes out of conversations that you have when you're out traveling around, you meet people.
Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, thanks a mil for your lovely words. I'm going to move on because there's more hands raised, but thanks a million, and thank you for always attending. You're always at our sessions, and it's great to hear you in good form.
Well, it's good to speak to you all again, and you take care, Eric, whatever you do. Keep up the good golfing that you've always said that you've always liked. Keep it going. And I love to keep in contact with you off list and away from work, to keep in contact, to speak. It would be good.
Sounds good, Andrew.
All right, Andrew. Thanks. Sorry, Eric.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. I will get back over there at some point traveling around, and I'll make sure I stop in and see Sight and Sound. I'll stop in and see Stuart there in Ireland. It'll be good.
We're going to bring you for a pint of Guinness in Dublin, definitely.
Yes,
oh yeah. I'll take you
right.
for a pint, Eric.
You can come as well, Andrew.
You for a pint.
You can
right,
come
no
too.
worries.
All right. Thanks a million.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, and if anyone else wants to raise their hand, Alt and Y is the keystroke. I'm going to keep going with the hands, and then we'll check in with Sharon. So we have Jonathan Abro. Jonathan's another regular attendee, and just for the sake of people know who's next after that, we'll be going to John Gassman, one of the legendary pair of the Gassman brothers over in the west coast of the United States. So Jonathan, I hope you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi, thank you. Eric, I'm relatively new to JAWS. I've only been using it for 5 or 6 years, so I know there is so much more to it than what I know, and hopefully one day I'll learn a bit more. I just wanted to say a huge thank you as a relative newbie. Just listening to you speak from time to time has been quite something. Just hearing the way that you, as a sighted person, know so much about JAWS and answer the questions that people have. And you're always happy to be here and helping on a call, or I have no doubt, not having met you in person, no doubt you have a flock of people around you at any event that you're at in person. So it's really just to say thank you and wish you very well. And I'm young enough to remember cassette tapes, but I've not experienced the pleasure of those learning tapes that you were just talking about. Are they online, or is there a way of listening to them?
Yeah, so if you go to the Freedom Scientific homepage and go to the link for FSCast, on the page where I think it was the July FSCast, Glenn interviewed me and I spoke to him for an hour or so, which I absolutely was fantastic for me. I really enjoyed that. And if you've been around for a long time, you would enjoy listening to that conversation that he and I had. But he included on that page 4 links to, I think, 2 of the tapes, a side 1 and a side 2 for 2 of the different tapes.
Oh, wow.
Fantastic.
And
Brilliant.
if you go to that page, and you'll find those links, and it's funny listening to me as a younger voice and remembering some of that, sitting in a recording studio with him, and that's how I recall. That was so important for me to be able to learn this stuff from the expert. So yeah,
Well,
go and listen to those 2 tapes.
Yeah, I definitely will. And yeah, just a huge thank you. I think, you know, it's safe to say that you're an inspiration to so many people, and we hope that those following in your footsteps, and welcome to Ryan, will be able to do even some of what you've done and help us in the way you have. So I wish you all the very best for your retirement.
Thanks, Jonathan, and congratulations on your skills to date with JAWS, and I'm sure you'll continue to flourish with it.
Well, thank you. And when
What do you do,
London,
by the way, Jonathan? What do you do?
I've been an IT project manager, and I specialize in accessibility, and I'm also very involved in various sightless charities. I'm involved in audio description via a charity called Vocalize. I'm a trustee of that, and I'm on the London Sight Loss Council with Pocklington. In fact, I'm busy arranging a really fun event at the Postal Museum, and for anyone who's never been to the Postal Museum in London, you've got to go, especially to an audio described tour. It is the most fun for any age. So I try and give back a bit, and I try and stay a little bit up to date with tech, and mostly I like to have fun and travel.
Fantastic. Sounds great.
So come to London and let me buy your coffee. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Jonathan. Eric, you're going to have plenty of traveling to do after today, I suspect.
Yeah.
We'll go back to raised hands in a sec. We might pop over to another member of the panel who we haven't heard from yet. That's Sharon Lyons. Sharon's monitoring the chat. Sharon, anything you want to pass on to us at the moment?
Yes, the fact that I have to apologize and say that the chat was disabled there for a while. I didn't realize it disabled itself. I managed to sort it out thanks to a spy in the audience who told me. Thanks, Ash. Yeah, so we have the messages coming in, and I really apologize that wasn't working. It is now, so get stuck into the chat. So I have, can I read some?
Please.
Yeah. So there's a message here from Larry Lumpkin. Says, my wife Susan and I do books for Bookshare, and we needed the page break symbol to speak in JAWS. That's, yeah, you can imagine. Eric personally took it in hand and got the fix implemented in JAWS. So
now just to be fair, Larry, you were the cause of getting that fixed because you were persistent. You took the time to explain the relevance of what the problem was. You gave the perfect examples, and it was very easy for me to go back and say, hey guys, this has to work. This is why. So be persistent as users. Think about how it impacts you and how it will impact others, and politely convey that information and continue to convey that information as much as you have to back to the support teams and whoever it is you work with. And these things do filter up, and we will get them fixed. So thank you, Larry.
Perfect.
Brilliant.
Perfect. Then we have Pierre Kegels, if I'm saying that right.
Pierre.
Kegel?
Yeah, Pierre Kegels.
He says, Eric, we met at FNB a few weeks ago.
NFB in New Orleans.
Oh, NFB,
Yep.
that makes more sense now. Sorry. Really just wanted to take up this opportunity to say hi again and wish you all the best, he says. And first time was one of the first dealer meetings over 20 years ago.
Yep.
So he's loved the chats, and good to see a fellow Red Sox fan.
Yeah, but let's not talk about the Red Sox here, because it's not going well.
Okay, let's move on. Ash, my spy, says, have a wonderful retirement, Eric. You helped our technical support team out no end over the years. Will Burton had a fair amount of interaction with you, he believes, and if Eric Damery got involved in the support ticket, then we knew it was an escalation of an escalation of an escalation.
Well, thanks to you, Ash, and hats off again to the Sight and Sound support team. You guys have been like on an island over there, literally. And you know, I've always tried to explain to our support management that the Sight and Sound team works for you guys too. Help them out. Everything we talk about, we always try to communicate over to you guys. So we appreciate all the hard work you guys have done with the customers and your patience with us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And he's inviting you for a round of golf there as well. So next time you're in the UK, and no mulligans, whatever that means. So
yeah, I don't need mulligans these days.
Okay.
Okay, Eric's getting loads of invitations today. He'll be kept busy, no doubt.
You're going to be so busy.
And thanks, Ash, for your chat and for your message. And thanks also for alerting us of the chat issue. And thank you, Sharon, for seeing to that. All happened in the background. Okay,
we're going to.
Thank you very much. We're going to go back to a couple of raised hands. We're going to go to John Gassman, who's over in the west coast of the US. And then after John, we'll be going to Maria Polidi, who is in Dublin. So from the US to Dublin. So John, you should be able to unmute yourself, sir. We'd love to hear from you. I think we have you.
There we go. Well, hello again to Eric. I've said this privately, but Eric, you and Glenn and Ted, on behalf of JAWS, have made so many of us an opportunity to be successful at work, and I can never thank Freedom Scientific enough for that. And to have a chance to meet you back at, I guess it was one of the CSUNs, and then later to work with you and give back a little bit to host FSCast. I mean, that was completely out of the blue when we got that call back in October of 2018. I loved it, and pandemic kind of ended that, but we still have an opportunity to give back to people and talk to a lot of people and learn so much about JAWS, and you were a major part of that. And as a part of the private beta team, along with Stuart, I know we all look forward to working with Ryan, who I don't know real well, but look forward to having that opportunity in the months and years to come. And I can't thank you enough for all that you've done and taught me over the years. And I hope you have an absolutely wonderful retirement.
Thank you very much, John. Ryan, you're going to have to watch out for those guys too. No, they've been great. I remember meeting Larry and John. You can't tell them apart, by the way, for those of you who don't know them.
Ryan may have a difficult time doing that.
Yeah, they're identical twins. They sound alike. They're usually, oftentimes they're in the same room talking. You can hear one in the background, and it's been fantastic. I met you guys at LAX Marriott.
Yeah.
And the CSUN convention used to be held there. And you guys have both been instrumental in your respective jobs, one with Marriott, one with Disney, and not only being successful yourselves in those jobs, but helping to train other people that followed, that came into the organizations. And you helped make sure that those people got work. And that's what this was all about, job access with speech. I mean, we were there to try and help people get employment. So thank you. You guys both contributed significantly to a lot of people.
Thank you, and loved every moment of it.
John, thanks a million. Thanks for coming along so early in the morning at your time as well. So we appreciate that. Okay, we are going to go to Maria Politi in Dublin, and then after Maria, we're going to be going to Sandra Gare, who joined us on our podcast a couple of months ago, and Sandra is over in the UK. So Maria, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry, turned off the just turned off the fan. I also wanted to wish Eric a great retirement, and also thank you so much for recommending 1Password and Office 365. Now I've got subscription to both because I'm since the pandemic finished, I've been asked to translate into Russian the leaflet for the West of Ireland pro-choice campaign, and I found that the word 2010, the old one that I had, wasn't doing the job properly, and of course Thunderbird was getting too slow. Microsoft Outlook 365 is a lot better, and plus now I'm learning Ukrainian and doing Ukrainian webinars, and I need to work in Excel, Word, and Outlook, and that kind of helps as well. And basically, I just wanted to ask though if there's anything on the Freedom Scientific website or anything on the 365 Office, in particular Word, Excel, and Outlook. I don't use Access or PowerPoint for the time being because sometimes the spell check isn't like in Excel, it works, it tells you what the spelling's extra space, but in Word it kind of stopped working. Sometimes I have to use NVDA as well with JAWS for it to read. And I've got the ordinary version, the latest version of JAWS. So, and anyway, wanted to wish you a good retirement, and please, Clearwater, Florida is heart of Scientology. Please don't let them get you. They're a dangerous cult.
Okay,
Yes.
Maria, thank you very much. Brilliant.
Thanks, Maria. One thing that Maria mentioned, I just wanted to touch on. She mentioned a program called 1Password, and I had a partial knee replacement done about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now. And I remember when that was happening, I was thinking to myself, as I'm getting up there in years, this keeping track of my passwords for everything or using the same password for everything that I do, this is a real problem, and I can see this becoming a real issue for folks. And when my parents had passed away, they didn't use computers. They didn't have all these passwords for me to learn. They had file cabinets, but I don't have that. And, you know, in the future, when somebody has to be able to get to whatever it is you had, having a solution like 1Password, I think is a great program. There's several of them out there. But for those of you who haven't experienced or started to look at this stuff or think about it for yourself, I encourage you to do so. I think having a great password protector and a solution that works well for all the stuff we do online is going to be really important. I will warn you that 1Password just came out with a new version, a web-based version, and it is not accessible. And it was one of the last things I wrote about back in July. I wrote to the company, and I did get a communication going with them. They did assure me that they were going to keep the current installed version that you get, and I forget the version number of it, but that's going to continue to be available on their website. So if you can get that program and install it, it's a good one. LastPass is another one that's probably pretty popular. Anyway, that was it.
Brilliant. Thank you, Maria. And thanks, Eric, for the tip on 1Password. I know it's a popular choice that a lot of people have been talking about for a while. So we're going to go to Sandra Gare, and Sandra, you should be able to unmute yourself, I hope.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Yay, it works. Webinar on my iPhone, even though I'm not very good at the Apple thing. Yeah, hello, Eric. I don't think you'll remember me. We've spoken occasionally, not just on Sight and Sound, but on ACB's sort of late night for me, but early afternoon for you webinars. But my first memories of you go back about just a little over 20 years when I was a preteen and in a really small village in the southeast of England and listening to the cassette tapes from America, which was like really exotic to me at the time. But yourself and Glenn just gave me this sense of, I can do this, because I mean, it was straight out of hell, because I was trying to cope with school, cope with using a computer at all, and then learning JAWS on top of that. And listening to your cassettes was like, it is actually, I can do this thing. So thank you so much for giving confidence, not just to me, but probably lots and lots of people, around the world. You've made a difference around the world, and that will never ever fade. So I hope you have a lovely future. And just a quick tangent, I was actually hosting for the ACB convention in July and hosted for Glenn, so I was slightly fangirling at the time, but I was on mute, so it was fine.
That's great. Congratulations, Sandra. It's good to hear your voice again. And you were dedicated to it. You committed yourself to it. You knew you had to do this, so you spent the time and you learned it, and it'll stay with you. So
I did. Yeah, I mean, I used Zoom text before that because whoever was assessing me put me down as partially sighted for whatever reason. So I had hell's teeth before JAWS. So JAWS was like, was amazing. It just said an awful lot more for a start. So yeah, there was definitely a high incentive to dedicate myself to it. And just as an answer for the password thing, slightly low tech solution I've come up with is called writing it on a piece of Braille paper. So it's quite hard to hack Braille for people who are sighted anyway, because no one can be bothered to learn it, apart from your good self, I suppose. But yes, that's my solution for the multiple passwords, because some jobs I have, they get you to change your password once a month. So yeah, one password and keychain and all those, just painful. So yeah, that's mine.
Yeah, and in the case where you have to have it at work, I haven't successfully really been able to use it because I have to have so many different passwords on our network, and one password didn't work with that. But for all of my personal stuff, credit cards, and I even store all the passport information and everything I keep in that one password program, so I can always get to it from an iOS device or from a PC anywhere, and in a nice, safe, locked firebox. My wife has access to get to everything in the event something happened to me, so it'll really help her out.
Wow, I just write a song for it all. That's my thing.
Well, Sandra, come back to us with the song when it's written. We can have a premiere on Webinar Wednesday. Okay, we'd love that.
Done.
Right, thanks, Sandra. Good to hear from you. Thank you very much. Now, let's go back to the only other member of the panel who hasn't had a chance to speak yet, and that's Ryan Jones. And Ryan is the new Vice President of Software Product Management at Vispero. And Ryan, I suppose, first of all, you're very welcome. I hope it's going to be the first of many visits for you to Sight and Sound webinars, but I do hope we're going to see you in person as well, hopefully in the future. Yeah. So we'd love you maybe to introduce yourself and say whatever you'd like to say.
Sure. Thank you, Stuart. Thanks, everyone, for letting me be here and crash Eric's celebration and retirement party. Eric and I go back. I think I first met Eric when I went to work for Freedom Scientific in 2005. So it's been 17 years that we've known each other and worked together, and more in some points and less in others. So I'll just kind of share a little bit about my background so people can kind of get to know me a little bit. I'm blind myself. I have light perception left, so I can tell when the lights are on in a room, or tell if it's daylight outside or dark with a window. So it's enough to help me in orientation and mobility a little bit, get around. I can usually tell if the computer screen is on or turned off, but that's about it. So I don't read print anymore. I grew up low vision, probably similar to some of you who, I could read large print books. I could use back then we called them a CCTV, but a video magnifier to read print, read books. And I used books on tape a little bit. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s going through primary school and used books on tape. And then when I went to college in 99, my vision was starting to get worse. And so using screen magnification, video magnification wasn't really helping me anymore. So that's when I took the plunge and stopped using Zoom Text and Magic and switched over to JAWS. So it's been about 23 years that I've been using JAWS. I mostly taught myself how to use JAWS, and I did a bachelor's degree in college in information management. So I figured I would be an IT professional. I was maybe going to do database management or networking or something like that, but then it ended up getting a call. My resume had gotten around to Freedom Scientific and got a call from Glenn Gordon and a gentleman named Miguel who was working there at the time, and ended up going down and interviewing in Florida for a couple of different jobs. And we ended up deciding that training would be a good fit for me. They had a job opening in the training department. So I started there in 2005, worked with Dan Clark, who I'm sure many of you have heard Dan's voice over the years with the basic training built into JAWS and webinars. And so I started there, and I went for about 3 years and worked for one of our dealers as well in the Washington, D.C. area, and also the Caribbean, Trinidad, Jamaica. You had to travel for work down there sometimes in that job. And it was just terrible to have to go to Trinidad for a week or two, or Jamaica for a week at a time. And, you have to just go to the Caribbean, especially in the wintertime. just a rough experience, but it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. And really it helped me understand the difference in perception of disability in other parts of the world, because the perception there, I always tell people, some areas are 20 years behind the US in disability perception, and in some ways that's even further behind in some of Europe. The Caribbean was, because they were still having people making wicker baskets and brooms and things that were visually impaired. So we were trying to help bring technology in there and help them understand the value of technology that can open the door for people who are blind or low vision. And then I went back to work for Freedom. I lived down in Clearwater, St. Pete, Florida area for a while. And then in 2014, I kind of started to transfer over into the consulting side of our work. And that's when we're starting to bring up that part of the business, accessibility consulting. So that's working with websites, smartphone apps, you're testing them for accessibility. So I kind of transferred over into that part and have did that for several years, 5 or 6 years. And I enjoyed it. It's been a lot of fun. I really got to learn what the challenges that companies face, schools, organizations, companies, what they face around accessibility. And I've heard a couple of other folks here talking. I think Jonathan works in accessibility, you said. And so it's a very challenging area to work in because you have so many pressures on companies and factors that have to be involved. So I really enjoyed getting to learn that part of the business and how we can help people make their technology more accessible. So those of us who use JAWS and other low vision blindness technology can still access their information. And so did that for a while and worked in kiosk accessibility, which was a really fun area, totally new. Nobody was making kiosks accessible. And but the most enjoyable project I think I worked on was working with McDonald's here in the US to help make their kiosks accessible. So they're rolling this out, and we actually have JAWS on a couple thousand of their kiosks, and they're adding more each month here in the US, and hopefully we'll get that over to the UK before long as well. So when you go into a McDonald's, they have a keypad and you can plug in your headphones and it will actually start JAWS. You may not know it's JAWS. You might recognize the voice that's used, but we helped integrate JAWS into their kiosks so you can use these little keypads to navigate their interface and buy you a Big Mac or a milkshake or whatever it is that you want. So that was a really fun thing, just totally new technology and new accessibility work. And then got the call from Eric a couple months ago that he was retiring and interested in me taking this role on. So that kind of started this whole process. And it's really great for me because software was where I really started out with the company, and it's something I've always kept in touch with. And most of you know names like Eric and Glenn, but there's so many other people in the business that are on our team that have been here for 20 plus years. People like Carl Wise, who's the director of software engineering. He doesn't, a lot of those people, they don't get out in the spotlight much, but they've been working for many, many years on these products. And it's such a great team to work with. And so I was super excited to come back over to this part and take this role on. And because it's personal to me, this isn't and most all of us at the company, it's that way. It's not a job for us. It's a way of life. And because I'm a user of this technology, it's got a very personal connection to me. So I'm really excited to do it. I'm looking forward to getting over to the UK and meeting some of you. I've been to the UK on a vacation some years ago and been to quite a few different places in Europe, but it'll be fun to get over there from a work perspective as well. I live in Kentucky here in the US. I live in Lexington, Kentucky. My wife and I, we've been married for 12 years. We've lived in Florida for a while, but we're here in Kentucky. This is where both of our families live now. And so I think we'll be here. So, and it doesn't really matter anymore. Most all of us work remotely after the pandemic, especially. Even a lot of the people that live in Florida in the Clearwater area, many of them also work remotely now. So I think we're pretty settled here, but I enjoy traveling and definitely looking forward to getting over to see many of you. And I want to be an open door. So I want anyone to always feel like you can reach out to me like you did Eric. I know many people would reach out to Eric individually, and that same thing holds for me, because again, this is very personal to me. And so each person, each of our customers, each user of our products is extraordinarily valuable. And that's something that I've always kind of held in the front of my mind, and I don't ever intend to let that change. Hopefully I'm here for a long time. I'm 41, so I've still got plenty of years in front of me. So, this is something I hopefully will plan to do for quite a time in the future. So don't know if I'll get as many years in it as Eric did. We'll see. I guess if I want to work till close to 70, maybe that'll happen. Who knows? But I appreciate you letting me come today and crash this party for Eric.
Thanks, Ryan, and we wish you all the very best of luck, and we're going to be in touch with you, I'm sure, lots, and get you on our sessions in the future. So best of luck as you move into the new role. Very interesting role and an exciting role, I suppose, with the new major versions of JAWS and other products only a couple of months away. So we're looking forward to staying in touch with you, definitely. So thank you for coming along today and for sharing who you are with us. It's been very, very much appreciated. So let's, just before we go back to Sharon, see if there's any other news on chat. A couple of minutes left in the session. If anyone would like to raise their hand and say a quick hello and goodbye, or share a memory for Eric, or about Eric, or something you want to say to Eric, you have a couple of minutes. Alt and Y, or activate the raise hand button, and we'll have a quick look at that. And whilst we're waiting, if anyone else wants to speak, Sharon, anything else you wanted to mention on the chat?
Yes, thanks, Stuart. There's a lovely tribute from Joe Fullerton, RNIB, there to you, Eric. Used JAWS for over 28 years, even remembering DOS, JAWS for DOS. Still a favourite screen reader. Heard you speak at the Mitchell Library a few years ago. Best wishes and thank you for all your fantastic work, she said.
Thank you, Joe. And Joe's a regular attendee at our sessions as well, yes, working at the in Scotland at the RNIB.
Yes, one quick one from me, and hi Joe, nice to see you on the call. Haven't called up with you for many years. I've got Paul Beppy from the well, just left, I think, the BBC, but he was also remembering wanted to be remembered to Eric, so I'm shouting out for him. But one thing that strikes me about the these conversations that everybody can measure Jaws back to some version level, and we get down to the 2.1 and all sorts of amazing stone age like releases of technology that they started with. And I think it's just fantastic that people have managed to go through the years and through the versions and through the different changes in technology, which you have to remember every 5 years to forget everything you know and start again. And I think Eric and Freedom Scientific Vispro have taken all these guys on this call, and girls of course, through all of those different changes in technology behind it. And I think some of that may be lost a little bit. It's how Jaws has provided the glue for people to continue their lives. And so Paul says thank you, and my thanks also.
Thanks to Paul. Yeah, we know Paul well. I just saw Eamon O'Connor. Eamon, you had your hand raised and then you put it down. So I don't know if you meant to put it up by accident or if you wanted to speak, but if you do, by all means, stick it up again and we'll get you back on. And yeah, there's Eamon's hand going. So.
Can I add something in here? Just, Ryan mentioned how he traveled around in the Caribbean training and meeting customers, and that was an important experience. That was one of the things that I know I've benefited from, is that being out about traveling. But when you mentioned the Caribbean, Ryan, I couldn't help but think, I committed myself last December that I would get retired this year. I've been thinking about it for a while, and it's always difficult. But what I did was I went out and I booked a cruise for my wife and I. It's a big anniversary for us, and we're going to be in the Caribbean on the last week in October this year, while you guys are getting your new Jaws for Windows. So when you get it, remember that I am not getting it. I'm going to be down in the Caribbean enjoying a week off.
Right.
And then I also wanted to add that if, certainly I'll get out and about and do some traveling, but a lot of people make Florida a destination. You come to Disney, you do whatever, you come to the beaches. If you ever do venture towards the Clearwater Beach area, I'm in a town, it's an easy town for the people in the UK to remember, Dunedin. There's a Dunedin in Scotland, there's a Dunedin on the South Island of New Zealand, and there's a sister city, Dunedin, here in Florida, and that's where I live. And if you ever do get to this way, we're about 90 minutes from Orlando. By all means, reach out to me or reach out to Freedom Scientific. Someone will be able to put you in touch with me. I'd be happy to have a coffee or a beer here in Dunedin with you.
Sounds great. Thank you, Eric. Okay, we're going to Eamon O'Connor had his hand raised. So Eamon, you should be able to unmute yourself. I think we have you, Eamon.
Very thanks. Many thanks, Stuart. Very good morning, Eric. I just want to say, I was very lucky to attend a couple of your talks in Dublin over the years, and guys on them very interesting, very informative, and very entertaining as well. So I just want to take this opportunity of wishing you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you very much. And I always enjoyed my visits to Dublin. Stuart used to always encourage me to come up with a joke or two. And, I was just thinking about that the other day, and I should have written down a couple of jokes. I just heard a couple lately, but I can't remember them already. My short-term memory isn't what it used to be.
Eric, there were many things at which you really truly did well. Irish jokes, probably not. I think there was one about Shamrock, and I can't remember the punchline. So
yeah, I can't either. I tried.
So Eamon, thanks for your kind words. That's very, very nice. Thanks a million for joining us today.
And Ryan, I'll warn you, when you do go to Dublin and you give a presentation, you've really got to ask them to slow down. Talk slowly, because it's hard to understand a lot of them.
I'll start thinking of jokes now to get prepared.
You get a few jokes, Ryan. Exactly. You come over with a few jokes, you'll be fine. Yeah. Okay, that just about wraps it up. Eric, I suppose what can we say? Only thank you again. Thank you on behalf of everybody who you have been, I suppose, supporting and working with, collaborating and helping over the last 28 years, from everyone at Sight and Sound and the wider family, not just people who are on this session today, but our large customer base right across the UK and Ireland. Thank you so much. And thank you for always being available to join our sessions pretty much at the drop of a hat. Eric has come along to help out if we needed him. And that's been very much valued, I know, by all of us, by Glenn and the rest of the team here as well. So happy retirement. We enjoy your trip to the Caribbean while we're downloading JAWS 23. And thanks everybody for joining the session today. Look after yourselves, and we'll be back in September with another webinar. Thanks to Sharon, Glenn and Ryan, who comprised our panel, and from Stuart Lawler and everybody at Sight and Sound Technology. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye. Bye,
Thanks,
Stuart.
Eric.
Bye, Glenn. Thank you.
Bye, Eric.
Bye, Sharon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.